Right. Hey everyone, welcome to Beach Investing. I'm your host, Andrei Angelkovski. We're here with Chris Ho. How you doing, Chris?
What's going on, Andrei?
Awesome. So what we're going to be talking about today is related to the economic fundamental of transportation. So why is transportation so important? Well, it affects real estate values. It affects desirability to move to a certain area. So we're in the upper beaches here, and in this area we have transportation of the Danforth subway line. We have streetcars that go along the Gerrard, Dundas, and Queen Street. And we have the highways of Don Valley Parkway, the Gardner Expressway. So in addition to that, what about the people who don't have cars and are not necessarily walking distance to those, major transportation routes? So what Chris has kind of thought about here is he made an interesting phone call to a certain company, which he'll describe in a minute, but it adds another economic fundamental to the transportation factor. So tell us, what is it, Chris, that you kind of discovered here?
So I live in the Coxwell and Gerrard area, and I'm a user of Zipcar, and I realized that within the vicinity, the closest Zipcar location was at Coxwell and Eastern, or further up by and close to like Main and Kingston Road. I think those intersect. But that's a good 5 or 10 minute bus ride. And I was like, that's kind of stupid. If I have to take a bus to get to a car, it just wasn't really worthwhile for a convenient car share service. So I called Zipcar, and actually it took me a good 2 or 3 months for me to actually get hold of the person who was in charge of putting new locations. And I wanted to speak to them about adding a new location close by to where I live, so I could just pick up the car, drop it off, and as I was talking to Zipcar, like a couple ideas kind of popped into the back of my mind, and it's about the economic fundamentals thing. That hey, this is almost kind of like you can't add new roads, you can't add new streetcars or train tracks or highways, but there are things that you could add to make transportation more accessible in your area, and Zipcar is one of them. There's also other companies like Autoshare. And what that means is, as renters or homeowners, now you have more ways to moving around the city without the burden of car ownership. Your typical demographics of a Zipcar renter is someone relatively young, like I guess between your 20s or maybe like 40s, technologically savvy to an extent, affluent enough that you're not at the sort of lower level where you're relying purely on public transit. You have a little bit of disposable income to spend to rent a car, but you're not that affluent that you own your own car and you're never ever going to rent a car. And that little sweet spot is exactly almost where a typical property investor's renter market is.
The tenant profile.
The tenant profile, it's like right there. And in being able to find these extra kind of features or amenities around your investment properties, you're essentially making your property more desirable for your renter profile.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that was interesting when I was talking to Zipcar is at one point we're going to set up a meeting and sort of exchange different information that we have in terms of our economic analysis of the upper beaches and east side of Toronto, and we're going to share with them the information we have, and vice versa. We'll get a little bit of information from them. And what we're kind of looking for is, Zipcar is very strategic in the sense that they're very much like Starbucks, is they don't randomly just put cars everywhere.
Yeah.
They got to strategically put them where people will actually use them.
Mm-hmm.
So they do a lot of research themselves for their target market. And what that sort of, why is that important is, say on the east side of Toronto, there's 10 Zipcar locations. And through our research that we find that of that 10 Zipcar locations, 4 of them are the most heavily utilized locations out of all 10.
Wow.
And what that then translates to is that your renters, or our renters, are probably within a 5 to 10 minute walk of those like 4 or 5 locations. And we should sort of highlight that and sort of target that in more attention as like potential target markets.
Yeah, well, that's why you're going to meet with them, so you can show them that, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully, Zipcar, you're watching, and then perhaps you'll listen to Chris Ho, because he's a fantastic researcher. you're a great analyst, and you do your homework and you do it well. So that's great information. Thank you for sharing that, and I hope it works out and we get it accomplished. Thanks, buddy.
Cool. No problem.
All right, thanks, guys. That's good. I hope it works.